This is the Layover podcast, where your hosts Tracy Davis and Patrick Trevino share the unfiltered, behind-the-scenes stories of entrepreneurship. So sit back, grab a drink, and enjoy your flight. This is the Layover podcast.
I can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting no.
Okay. The Layover podcast is where live in Folly Beach.
Folly Beach, South Carolina.
That is the correct Carolina.
I always get these two confused.
It's not that difficult.
No, that's fair.
No, it is exciting to be here. I haven't been here since I was like 18 years old. Isn't that wild? That was like last year.
Yeah, I haven't been here ever.
I was gonna say, wait, did you lie?
No, I thought this was in North Carolina. You started this whole thing about that.
No, it's gorgeous. We are at Folly Beach and just exploring a little bit, doing some podcast recording and getting all the content. Beach life, van life on the beach.
Yeah, I need a little bit of a break.
Amen to that.
It's been a wild couple of 2 months.
I need a lot of bit of a break.
I don't think that's even a real word, but sure. I know what you're saying.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you about this topic today, Pat, because it's actually something that's really relevant to what I've been focusing on. As you know, we've been building out heavily some digital courses for Mind and Social to help support entrepreneurs. And I thought it would be really great for us to talk through really the process, the ins and outs of what it takes to start your business and get that first customer and all the way up to your first 100 customers, right? Because there's a lot of misconceptions. We have done it, so we can actually talk through that process, what to do, what not to do, and kind of go in a little bit. I want to go no bullshit type of discussion on this, if you're down.
No, I'm definitely always down. I'm always down for no BS. But I think when I add to one thing about the first 100 customers, that's when all the fun is happening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's not fun after that, but that's when it's high energy, motivation, the team is motivated, everyone's motivated.
That momentum.
And then how do you keep that momentum going?
That's
while scaling your company, right? Preparing your company for scale. You're going into a new phase of your organization, or should I say in business.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I'm trying to see what you have. I haven't read any of the script because I've been really busy with other things.
What is new?
So this is going to be as raw as it gets. Either I'm going to look like a genius or look like a fool.
I can't wait to see what it comes out to. All right. So the first part that I want to talk about is building that first MVP. So one of the misconceptions that new entrepreneurs or founders have is that you have to have a perfect product before you go to market. Now, I want to talk through this because I'm very passionate about it, but before I go into my rant, what are your thoughts? Should you wait till your product's perfect before you go to market or release it?
No, I'm just going to cut you off there. No.
Yeah. I
don't think it's product or even service. I think that you're never going to have a perfect launch on a service, on a company. There's, you always hear, I'm waiting for the right time. And there's some research that has to get done, market research and when can you market entry points. But at the end of the day, when you feel you're ready, and you better go. Because if you're not ready, somebody else is ready. And they're coming.
Or you might not feel that you're ready. You still got to go. Because I'm super passionate because I've seen this play out so many times. And people will try to wait till it's absolutely perfect. And then the market keeps on going, right? No one's paused, and then you've lost your opportunity.
This thing changes and moves and evolves on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I've coached people that can't even get out of their own way when we first start working with people about just basic things. My website, my feel, the touch, the logo, none of that matters, really. It really doesn't. Long term, it does, right? You're building a brand, stability, and all these other things. But brands evolve.
Yeah.
Logos evolve.
They do.
Go look at Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. They change their logos all the time.
All the time. And I think that's what's important is that people need to remember that you are allowed to evolve. So who you are as a person, who you are as a founder, a CEO, a COO, whoever it is, who you're starting out as is going to evolve, and you need to give yourself the grace to allow that to happen, as well as your brand, your company, your product. TRAX back in the day in 2018, 2017, before it was even a company, looked completely different. And you have to keep evolving. And I think it's so important that people get your MVP product, get your, just this solution that can be in someone's hands to allow you to evaluate if the market wants it Are people going to actually buy it and spend money on it? And then, what a lot of people forget is that sometimes you have in your head a solution to a problem, but it might not actually be a problem,
Yeah, I think I would love to. Yeah, I mean, you're valid and on everything you said there. I would love to be able to make this into a 2-part, 3-part series, because as you're speaking and you're telling me these things, it's dawning on me that one of my mentors, not really, I take that back. He's not my mentor. Obviously, English is not my first language.
You can't use that excuse for long.
I've been using it since I was born. But Howard Schultz from Starbucks is a great example of someone that I looked up to as I was studying. When I was in my master's program, I really did a deep dive into Starbucks. Companies reinvent themselves all the time.
Yeah.
Right? And so even their product lines, their branding, but even their leadership. And that is the one component I feel that you just said that dawned on me is you have to evolve as a leader as well. Because if you don't, you could be the stagnant reason why you're stuck at 100 customers.
Yeah.
And true leadership and true entrepreneurs know when to get out the way.
Absolutely.
And it is a very challenging thing for entrepreneurs, right? Because you want to be known as the person, the founder. You think having the name CEO next to your name is gonna drive meaning and maybe it does, psychologically brings meaning to your purpose, right? Of what as an organization. But the person who's right behind you, you have been mentoring them to replace you.
Correct.
As an entrepreneur. That would not be ever taken away from you. You're still an entrepreneur, right? You're still a founder. But real good founders and CEOs and executives know when to move out of the way, and the next generation's coming, right? The person that's going to take you from 100 customers to 1,000 customers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And
so
I would love to be able to talk
we'll,
about that.
We'll absolutely dig into that for sure, because the leadership piece is something I'm very passionate about. I've learned a lot over the past 6 years of doing this. But the first part is getting that first customer. That is a really hard part in starting a business, because a lot of times people have this grandiose vision, right? You're going to save the world.
Right.
And then you go and, create your whiteboard at home and you map it out and you got your business plan, but you take a step back and the market's like, this isn't actually a problem. Yeah. We don't need this. We're not going to pay for it.
Right.
So getting that first customer is so important. And the sales piece of it is really tough for some founders. If you're not sales driven and you're more operations driven or more, product focused, being able to step back and make sure that you can get your product into that first customer's hands is challenging. And I know we believe in more of a consultative relationship approach, but I don't know if you remember, TRAX had previously started a little bit before you got in there, but what was your experience of getting that first customer? What is your sales tactics? And let's talk.
Yes, I won't talk about TRAX. I'll talk about previous, because I was that customer for TRAX.
That's
right?
Fair.
So
yeah.
I was looking at the product for a customer of mine, and I truly believe that really good sales individuals bring excitement, drive, and energy to part of that sale. I'm not talking about speaking loud and just making noise to make noise and remembering your presence. You immediately understanding the customer's needs. You immediately are understanding the business cases and what you're trying to solve. A lot of times, if you just, and it's so cliche, you hear all the time, if you just hear the customer, you solve. So, right? Sometimes. No. But they are telling you what their business case is. And I remember immediately you started your sales pitch with asking me about what our company was doing and what our client was looking for.
Right.
And I know somehow you BS behind the screen, change some things around in your presentation, and then in the first four slides.
There was no BS.
Yeah, you're moving the slides around, but then from there, I was immediately within the first 4 slides, I already knew I wanted to buy this. I already knew this brought value to me.
Guys, did you hear it? I'm that good.
I mean, you were. I mean, you really were. Even though you forgot about the meeting and you were 5 minutes late.
Fair.
But that's
I
a
did
different
it in my car.
Yeah. But you hit the point right from the beginning, right? So for me, I'm already paying attention to everything else you got to say.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, okay, now I'm interested. I know I'm interested in this. I'll ask for pricing later. I'll ask for this part to it. So.
The relationship piece is key, right?
And it was key. And so for me, it's a little bit different skewed for TRAX, right? Because I was the customer, and then I remember calling you, a couple of months later and saying, I could sell the shit out of this thing.
Did. I think those exact words.
And because I was like, this is the wave of the future of where the facility management janitorial market was going to go. And so I do think it's important. We believe in consultative sales. Now, there's other sales, different types of sales out there. You know, you sell used cars, new cars, you sell phones, services, whatever it may be. There's still a level of connection.
Yeah.
And so when you get that first sale, or you are searching for that new sale, again, it depends, right? In your case, you were the CEO, but you were also the installer, you were also the programmer, you were also the configurer, you were also implementing, you were technical support, you were everything. It was a one-stop shop, and realistically, it was a one-stop shop with one person. The other customer didn't know it was one person, but whatever. Well, you know, it just shows drive. It shows drive, right? It shows passion, and that's the other part of it that I wanted to hit on, is that when you're looking at your first sale, it's that passion of success, that passion of saying, wow, when I did something, somebody found value and put a dollar figure to that product launch, or sometimes that product offering. But I do remember my first sale at TRAX, and it was to a facility management company for a large airport. And I mean, I swing 1,000, so it was a grand slam for us at the beginning. But it proved strategy, research, and hard work pays off when you can drive that value. So I would say for people who are trying to get their first sale, you're going to get rejected.
Yes, you'll get told no 1,000 times.
1,000 times, right? Baseball players make millions of dollars, and they only hit the ball 3 times out of the 10 times they go up to bat, right? And that's a really good player, right? And then sales is the same thing. You have to just see past that one sale and don't think of it, oh, I just got to get this one sale so that I could do this one thing. Just view it as in, don't stop. The sales train never stops, and nor should you. If you got one sale, great, but don't focus in on that one sale. Focus in on the strategy, your sales strategy, initiate the strategy, dedicate yourself to the strategy, and execute the strategy. And you'll be surprised how one sale quickly could become 5 sales in 1 month.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're not homed in on just on one. Because homing in on one brings, again, my English is not that great, but it's almost like your paralysis, right? You like freeze because you're just so homed in on this one sale. It's a one important thing, which leads to what? A PowerPoint taking you 40 hours to complete. And you start to take away from why you really created the product, right? Or the service.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people who might be starting out, one of the good, easy lessons I like to teach is storytelling. Like the power of storytelling when you are selling. And recently I was able to mentor at Emory University a bunch of young entrepreneurs, and they created their own businesses and all of this thing. And they got up and we did a pitch competition, the whole 9 yards. Well, that was one of the lessons I taught, was tell a story about your business. So when, for example, there was a young gentleman who was selling juice, and I was like, okay, when you're up there, tell the story about why people want your juice, which is when you go into the supermarket, all the other ones taste like crap and they're too expensive, and you can't find something that has, 2 ingredients. Like, go ahead and create this story about why you're passionate about juice, or whatever it is. It could be your cell phone, whatever you're trying to sell. Tell that story about why you're selling it, why there is a problem, and then sell the solution to it. And being able to connect with people human to human on that level of emotion, you will see how quickly they'll buy when you're emotionally connected.
So I want to talk about that part, right? Because well-rounded individuals have that emotional IQ of understanding like surroundings and people and conversations. But when is emotional connection gone too far for the point of sale? Because I like to go to bed to watching Shark Tank, and I don't watch American Idol anymore. Bring back Katy Perry. Hashtag.
She went to the moon and back, so.
Oh yeah, supposedly. But only person ever defined gravity. I want to know what her hair product is, because I can't even walk in a parking lot with my hair blowing all over the place. But when I say emotional selling, how far is too far? So when I watch Shark Tank, people come in and they pitch and they do their pitch. And I get it, they're on TV, it has to be scripted. But how much is too much that you're trying to use emotional previous connections to have almost like a pity sale?
Yeah, no, that's
and I don't mean, I know everyone goes through trauma, and I'm saying, there's people lose loved ones, people got sick and whatnot. But you hear all the time, it's like, I invented this product because, and my father passed away from I don't know, a cancer or one of those things.
Yeah.
Whereas really, truly, I know it's for TV, so they have to have that
Sure, yeah,
dramatic and that
different.
part to it. But realistically, you shouldn't be bringing those things into an actual sale
Yeah.
of it, because the product itself is what you're selling. And then you're selling the product and you're selling yourself.
Yeah.
Again, there's all different types of selling. Here we're talking directly to business, the B2B
Yeah.
or B2C. We're not
Yeah.
talking like, business to investor, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole different
Yeah,
sales
different,
pitch, whole different mindset, which Shark Tank is investors component to it. But I do think, what is your thoughts on that
Yeah.
when it's like the emotional selling component became more than the actual
Yeah.
product, or should I say the pitch, what you were doing?
Right. No, is a good point, because it can quickly get to be too much. And I think finding that middle ground of where you can connect with someone, but you're not divulging your entire life
Correct.
history and why you stay. Like for example, if I had started a product because my so-and-so passed away from something, whatever, like very emotionally driven to it, I would tell the story of like, I created this because, I had a close friend who passed away, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm incredibly passionate about fixing it. And then focusing on the product, right? Not focusing on why and the history behind it as much. Tell the story to connect and quickly, like, this is why, you need to know your why, right? And we always talk about that too. But then quickly focus on the solution, not the problem as much. And I think if you can kind of flip your brain to that, then you can get away from divulging your life story and why when you were conceived, and then which room you were in, and then now you're here.
Because I believe in today's world. I mean, it sounds awful, and I'm sad it's in this direction, but I feel like in today's business world, there's not enough empathy when it comes to it. So I hate to say it, but a lot of people don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Right? You're selling me a product, or you're selling me a solution or a service. Home in on that. To your point, that's a good point of looking at it. Is like, make the connection.
Yep.
But then switch that connection into, now, okay, the connection's there. Let me help them solve what they're trying to solve to then push the sale across.
This is the key thing that people forget. Everyone only cares about themselves. And I don't mean that in like a cold way, but a little bit. But at the end of the day, when you're selling to someone, they only care about how you're going to impact them. They only care about how the product, the service. They're not going to care about how it impacts you or why you did it. They want to know high level, sure. But at the end of the day, they want to know what you're solving for them and the emotional impact it's going to have on them. So is the problem that they're facing so intense that they are so stressed, they can't sleep, they're working around the clock, their teams are inefficient, whatever it is, it's causing an emotional reaction to them that you can then give them a simple solution to solve.
Yes.
Focusing on that. And that's where I think that key is, where people...
Buying.
Yeah.
Buying. And I will say to everyone out there who's looking to buy stuff, please don't interrupt your salespeople who are presenting to you and have... When someone is selling to someone, that person who's actually doing the selling, have respect for them as well.
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how many times I've been in a presentation and someone says, before you get started, could you just let us know what the pricing is? No, I'm not going to tell you. Wasting my time. Next customer.
Yep.
And it may be a big person I'm walking away from, or a big business, but no. I'm going to show you respect and show up to this meeting on time, well prepared, and have done my research. You, by accepting this invitation, are going to give me the mutual respect to hear me out on what I have to say based on the business needs and the challenges which I collected or your team has shared with me in a previous discovery call.
But here's the curveball for you. Not everyone's going to do that, and you're going to run into those meetings with true a-holes that are going to interrupt you, stop you. What advice would you give to people when that happens? Because it will happen.
Yeah. Don't pivot your script, but do not pivot your message.
Okay, that's good.
So when you pivot your script, meaning, okay, well, you can safely say, totally understand. I would love to answer that question. It's actually in my presentation.
Yeah.
It's a couple of slides from now. I'm like, I would like to keep the workflow going, but as soon as you get to this, if it doesn't answer your question, I'll point it out to you which slide it is that it's answering your question.
Yeah.
If it's not enough, then we can dive into it. You pivoted, but you didn't get away from your messaging, because for that one person who only cares about the finances, there's 25 other people in that room that care about other parts too, who actually don't care about the finance part of it, because that person's only worried about the finance part about it.
And I think that's so key, because we always talk about this, the art of dancing, right? The art of being able to dance. So I'm, again, keeping the whole structure going. you've got your product now, you're in meetings and you're starting to sell it. You've got your strategy, which is emotionally connecting quickly, but then selling a solution to a problem that they face. Then at this point, you're going to need a quick pitch, right? You're going to need to be able to tell them about your product. How do you develop that pitch?
I'm going to tell you right now, I don't give you many compliments.
Oh, we know.
But that was a really good one. The art of dancing.
Yeah.
And understanding that. I mean, I'll piss all over the art of the deal because, I mean, really, if you think of it, that entire book is built on nonsense and true, not selling that you could sell in today's world. There's other books out there that are a little bit more valuable on it, because I do believe that environments change, people change.
Your pitch has to evolve.
Pitch has to change. And it's not one shoe fits all. If that's the case, then shit, the way my grandfather sold in 1952 is the same way I would be selling today.
Yeah.
It's just not the case, right? And so I like what you said there, the art of the dance, because you do need to be able to pivot and adjust and move quickly and make decisions and pivot. And that word,
All I think about is Friends.
there's a podcast out there. Shout out to the podcast out there, but it's called The Pivot, and actually is a conversational platform. It's a gentleman from ESPN that has it. But I like the show because they do pivot. They pivot conversations. They pivot, and they kind of ask questions that you're not expected to be asked. And so what I would say is that when you're selling in those things, you have to be prepared for these. Like, you have to rehearse.
Yep.
People who close deals are people that come fairly, really prepared. And not only are you coming prepared, you're coming with a passion.
Yep.
And you're coming with a passion that's so contagious that you're easing the person who's buying, and you're increasing their confidence in them making the right decision, and that decision is to invest in you.
Yeah. And I think the only way that you can properly pivot and be able to dance, right? You've got your pitch, you developed it, it's important. But if you are so structured on, this is what I'm going to say, and these are my PowerPoint slides, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, that when someone inevitably throws you a curveball of, hey, I actually don't care about this, can you talk about this? Or, hey, we don't have a problem, we don't want to talk to you, whatever it is. You
and
have
those
to
happen.
You have to have the confidence of being able to then just stop and say, totally, let me talk about this, let me talk about that. Like, you've got to be able to be fluid, and that comes with feeling confident in your product and the service you're offering, whatever it is, so much so that you have the answers to their questions.
And I always tell people too, if you prepare, research who these people are.
Yep.
And if you can, you know who's in a meeting, research who they are, and just look at what companies they worked for before, what positions they held. If this guy is heavily into finance, make sure you have a couple of slides in there that talk about return on investment and everything. And return on investment doesn't necessarily always need to be a monetary factor. And that's the other thing that I run into young entrepreneurs. Like, I've been asked for like a return on investment, and I haven't proven that yet. That's just something that no one ever talks about.
Yeah.
Everybody runs return on investment. What happens if you only have 2 customers?
Yeah.
Right?
Or no customers.
Or no customers. So return on investments are not necessarily monetary gains.
Yep.
You can look at return on investment from various different things. I like to always flip the script because I'm kind of an a-hole. And I say, hey, one return on investment is what happens when you fall behind in technology and you're the least company that's no longer winning jobs. So that return on investment just became a loss for you.
Yeah.
Because everyone else has moved on in that technological train, and this is where the market's going, and this is what the industry is going for a trend, and you're still using a mop bucket.
Well, so you bring up a perfect point, is how do you sell if you don't even have any customers to point to, right? Because that's a big challenge for new entrepreneurs, is like, look, getting that very first customer, I've got my sales deck, I've got my pitch, I got all this stuff. How do you find the right customers? How do you, get those meetings? But then also, how do you prove that your product or service is valuable if you don't have anybody telling the other world that, they bought it and they liked it?
In full transparency, I've never had that problem. So in this case, you can answer that question because you sold a product you were the first one to sell the product of TRAX, right? To a client, and actually a couple of pretty big ones actually still brag about it. But regardless of the fact,
of the largest airports, but no biggie.
But those, whereas where I started my business previously, and working with my own mentor, is that we inherited a whole bunch of businesses because we built a relationship with those customers, and we were able to purchase existing contracts, right? So that's not really selling. That's just
Right.
building such a damn good relationship that they trust you in a transition period, which says a lot,
That
right?
does say a
It
lot.
says a lot. Whereas when I came to TRAX, I sold the first stadium, the first arena.
Yeah.
So it was the first of many sales into different industries.
Different verticals, yeah.
Which, verticals, thank you. And so for me, that was the first
Yeah,
sale of
it
TRAX,
is
right?
though,
Into
yeah,
this, right?
yeah.
And so when you start getting like, we got our first new office building, we got our first new corporate real estate portfolio, first new hospital. Those are all different pitches you're
Yeah.
doing, right? So it's almost like you're doing again, and that keeps the energy going, right? The
Right.
team, the sales team should be motivated with that and saying like, holy cow, we were once focused in aviation, now we're focused in healthcare, we're focused in education and whatnot. But I think that people need to just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I mean, the art of doing a beta test or a pilot. So
We got a lot of art.
yeah, the art of the dance, the art of a beta test. No, I mean the importance of doing a pilot, I think, is key, and that's what I did with TRAX. Was I, found this problem statement, created the solution for the problem statement, but before we invested money into it, the time, the energy, the people, you got to make sure that the market actually wants it, that people will buy it, like we've said, but also allow someone to test it and to give you honest feedback.
Yes.
And I think that this is so important, and on twofold. One, it's okay to give work away at a discount, right? You don't have to do a free one. If you want to do free, cool, but we didn't do a free one. We had the client come at, halfway, we came halfway, so we both had investments into it. So we were both focused on it, right? When a client feels that they're investing money into something, they're more willing to put in the effort to make sure it works, to support it, whatever it is. And then on top of that, you've got to take a step back and trust that the feedback you're given is, positive, healthy criticism, right? Constructive criticism. You've got to be able to take that.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, I hate to break it to you, but your product does probably suck in certain areas. It's not going to be perfect, and you're going to have to hear that and evolve.
It's not going to be perfect, and great leaders are able to grab criticism, grab constructive criticism, non-constructive criticism, straight assholes, and so on, and grab that and put it in a box, look at it, and then look at it from a different lens of like, how much of this is garbage this person doesn't believe in it, and how much is like this person's actually helping me by providing me their honest feedback of how to build. That in itself is a good entrepreneur and a good leader who can then pick those things apart and like, let me look at the silver lining within these comments that are being said and this feedback that's being provided. I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, if you can do a pilot, if you've got a product or even a service, right?
Or just give it away. I don't mean to cut you off, but like Facebook was free when they launched it at their school, and they were just trying to see, and everyone thought it was ridiculous that they were going to do it that way. But what nobody realized is that they were going to sit on a gold mine of data.
Yeah.
How are people interacting? At what times are peak times? At what times are low times? They were literally having people do the work for them, and all they did was give them a platform. So when you hear companies say, oh, well, we don't want to be the guinea pig. Okay, then your competitor will be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and so why not be part of something that you can help build to help, and you have the competitive advantage to take advantage of those situations versus being the company that's always playing catch up.
Yep.
Unless that's what your company does, right?
Yeah.
You're just a company that's catch up. But back to the original question where you asked me about the sales thing, I think that entrepreneurs, to your point, you have different types of entrepreneurs, different types of CEOs, different types of leaders. Sometimes you have CEOs that are very operational driven. Then you have CEOs and entrepreneurs and founders that are sales oriented. So, in myself, I'm actually not a salesperson. I mean, I think this time I've evolved myself in my career to doing that.
Yeah.
But from an operational standpoint, I look at things from a different lens, right? Whereas there's other entrepreneurs that are like visionaries and really can come up with these ideas and these visions and
Hi, that's me.
and I don't want to give you credit and they can literally put everything on a whiteboard of like, this is today, tomorrow, next week, next month,
Easy with the
12 months and all these other things. You can go that far out.
Yeah.
But then you need someone to fill in the blanks, right? And how do we get to this point, right?
It's true.
I know where I want to get to. I know where I want to be in 5 years. I know where the product's going to be in 5 years. How do you get to that point? With me, I am the person that goes in between the lines to help build these operational plans to help get to these points and these milestones across.
yeah, this is a very good point because
Founders need co-founders.
Yes, that is exactly what I was about to
Yes.
say, is you have to find the yin to your yang. You've
Yes.
got to find someone who complements your weaknesses. So this is a
Mhm.
perfect example. I am the big visionary, all the stuff, and you are the operator type of brain. And so when you combine those two, you've got a whole person. No, I'm kidding.
That's
You've
have one.
You've got one. No, but you've got the ability to see both sides of the coin there. Whereas if I was running a business straight on vision, you wouldn't get anything done efficiently, right? Or if
Correct.
you were running things straight on operations, you would not dream big.
Or every decision for the organization will be based, or the product will be based on operational efficiencies
Right.
and operational usage versus visionary of product. And the table's not going to break.
I know. I'm worried about your mic.
This van was $200,000.
The table's gonna break, and the
Paul's
eardrums.
team built a very eardrums. People's eardrums. That's different something else. But I do agree with that.
You've got to find that yin yang.
You do, and then sometimes it's multiple co-founders, right?
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 of
Yeah,
them
a lot of people
sometimes
do.
at times. And it's just because there's a specialty in between, a specialty niche or a specialty service that you're offering, that you do need that level of team.
And so this is super important because there's a lot of solo entrepreneurs out there that don't have a co-founder or a partner. So my advice to you guys who don't have that is to just build an advisory team, right? So
Absolutely.
maybe you can't afford, or you're literally solo, which is great, and you don't even have revenue or income to come in to be able to pay for a partner or a founder or whatever. So build an advisory team of people who you trust, that are willing to do it at no cost, who kind of support you with this vision. And then eventually you can talk about equity shares, you can talk about payment for board, all that stuff is later down the road.
Yeah.
But find people that you can bounce your ideas off of, and then be able to be a strong woman or a strong man and take the criticism or the vision from someone else.
Yeah, I agree.
You got to take what you want and leave what doesn't work,
Yeah.
and then go from there.
But there's always a but with Pat, because I'm operational.
I know.
I have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Always have multiple plans for multiple things that you're trying to do. Now, when you're looking for a co-founder, to your point, you're looking for that person that fills the gaps on areas that are your weaknesses, or maybe not your strong points.
Yeah.
Should I say not weaknesses, but strong? They're not your strong points. But at the same time, someone that complements those parts, not bull in a china shop type scenario where everything just gets bulldozed.
Yeah.
So the vision becomes so blurred out,
Cloudy and
right?
suffocated.
Yeah, and so you want someone that shares that, but you also want someone that's going to support and understand the other way around.
Yeah.
Right? Because as being a co-founder, being someone else on the other side is, okay, cool. I know what we need to do to succeed, but my co-founder is the finance person, is the person that really homes in on the vision. That's our agreement in business. Yeah. So can we fund this? And does this operational plan align with the vision of the organization by one of the founders, right?
Yeah.
Like all of this stuff has to be perfect synergy. And the best way I can describe it is when you first start like an orchestra, right? When you first start playing a piece, it is a piece.
Yeah.
It becomes a masterpiece.
Ooh, look at you,
like
dropping knowledge.
You like that shit?
I like that.
So, made that into a t-shirt. It'll be on sale. All proceeds go to me.
Talk about co-founders.
I mean, yeah.
Mine.
But if you think of it in that way, that's why you said something that's earlier is don't be afraid to launch your product or your service without having perfection. Test it.
Yeah.
Before you go all in and invest into something, test it to see if the market would absorb it, if somebody will buy it. Once you get your first customer, the most important thing of that first customer is that you pay attention to that first customer. And you know what's the second most important thing?
What?
Get the feedback from that customer,
Yeah,
like you said. Because that customer is going to be honest with you. They're going to be raw with you. And why? Because when you only have one customer, what do you have a lot of attention to do? Is pay attention to that customer.
Absolutely.
So therefore, you're never going to be able to treat every customer the way you treated your first customer.
Yep.
And by treating them and creating the right pathway, now you could start to say, okay, this is what worked when I spoke to them. This is what got their attention. What do you know? You have a marketing plan there.
Yeah.
This is how they interacted with the product itself or services. What do you know? Operational planning there is in effect. Sales planning goes aligned with the marketing planning. How do I keep this customer continuously happy? What is it? What is it they like? Do they like when I call them once a week? Do they like when I call them twice a week? Do they like it once a month? What did you just build there? Account management strategy.
Yeah.
So you don't realize that you're doing it when you do it. But what you did is that one customer allowed you to build out and create continuously build your foundation of what your business plan was.
Yeah.
Every time when you're in college, everyone's like, "Oh, your business plan, write a business plan." Fuck that business plan, right? Like I fucking hate business plans. Like now, don't go just crazy and not do it.
You need a plan.
You need a plan, but you don't need to have this formal plan with this executive order. All this book, man. Go pound sand.
Get a very simple version of it.
Get a simple vision of it, and surround yourself with people that are going to help you build that plan.
And the plan's going to keep evolving.
And the plan will continue to keep evolving.
So this is important because let's say now Patrick's new company, you've got your first customer, you've done the research.
Milo's my first customer.
Milo has bought whatever the shit
He's
you're
already
selling.
attacked me. He returned it and then attacked me.
He's the one that's interrupting your sales presentations and everything. But you've got your first customer, you've got finally revenue coming in. What are the next steps for entrepreneurs at that point? How do you go from one customer to 100? What does that scale look like? Because inevitably there's different, chapters in that scale, right? 1 to 10 customers where you might be able to do it yourself versus, having to hire someone.
Yeah.
But how do you prepare for scale? Because that's a hard part.
You answered your own question, but sure, you throw me on the spot. So you first, just like a product, right? You have your beta, then you have your go to market, and then you're going to have your scale, right? You're going to have those 3 phases. Your organization, you should go through these evolutions as well, right? So maybe it's not 100 customers for some customers, right? So for a big software company, 100 customers at this X value factor, that may be worth a lot of customers. But if I was making a cupcake, 100 customers is not enough to sustain my business, right? Yeah. But I get what you're saying. I understand that logic of it. But yes, I think that the best way to look at it is like, this is how do you make your first dollar?
Yeah.
How do you then make your break-even point? And then how do you make profitability?
Yep.
Right? Like those three pillars. I think that realistically, there's no one shoe fits all. But I think what you do is you home in on your business, you home in what you're doing, you work extremely hard. I don't want to say it's lonely at the top because I'm against that.
Yeah, and that's why Mind and Social was created.
You're not lonely at yourself. You need to surround yourself people that are at the top.
Agreed.
Right? But you also need to be well-rounded with a solid foundation. Family, friends, close ones. They may not understand what you're doing, but they're there to support you from an emotional standpoint and whatnot. When you get to that point where you're turning the corner as an organization, so rather you're selling cupcakes or talking to dogs or have a software company, there comes a point where you will know when it's happening.
Yeah.
Right? You get the pyramids, and everyone looks at finances of it, but there's actually other indicators that you can look at it. Point of sales, sales cycles. What is the longest point of your sales cycles? Are your sales cycles getting shorter?
Yep.
Which means you should probably scale up with salespeople because you can create revenue with a shorter sales cycle at a faster rate. Look at your product, look at your services. Can they be broken out to increase existing revenue from existing customers? So instead of having 100 customers, you could sell twice to those customers and now you have 200 offering, 200 customers. So continuously looking at it from those components and building different channels within when you get to a certain point.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about the fun shit. Maybe people don't think that's fun. That's why there's not, but that's the fun part. Now comes the hard part. The hard part is when you get to 100 customers or 5,000 customers, whatever that milestone was that you had.
Yeah.
How do you transition now from break-even point of all investment money and everything that went into it, time, to be profitable? Once you get to that point, that's where it becomes challenging because through a period of time, you've dealt through increase, natural increase, right? It's easy to say year 2 in business, you went up 200%.
Yeah.
Because you went from fucking 0 to 200, right? But how do you get from 200 to 2,000, right? You're not going to always be growing rapid growth in this direction. Again, maybe there are companies that can do it.
Those are unicorns.
But those are unicorns, right? But how do you get to that point? Is it creating demand, like we see all the time, like barbecue stores, barbecue shops, or should I say? They're only open from 11 to 2 until they sell out. That's their whole marketing plan. create demand by shorter time and not fulfilling every order.
Absolutely.
So you know damn well
That urgency.
at 10 o'clock in the morning, 50% of your sales are already outside that door.
Yeah.
Right? They created demand. That's their logic they did. Right? And so they always have customers. They know that they're going to be capped out. But
you've got to figure out what's going to work for your individual business.
You do, but it's very hard. It is extremely difficult to go into full scalability format of your business.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult. It's not easy. Why? Because it takes a lot of work, smart people, and not one person.
Right.
It takes a team of people that can help you get to that next level. And so I went to Southern New Hampshire University. That was one of the schools that I went to for my master's program. They got rid of their old vice presidents and brought on new vice presidents because that old team went from 0 to 400 million.
Wow.
And they wanted to go to 2 billion.
Wow.
And they needed the next team to bring them from 400 to 2 billion. So organizational shakeups, organizational moves sometimes are required to achieve these things. It doesn't mean that the people who were there weren't smart enough.
Yep.
Sometimes they want to just move on or they're exhausted from the beginning phase of the business
talk about that
to the next point, right? And so when you're a new business, and how do you get from 100 to 101, right? 102, 103, 104 customers? It's hard work, but at that point, when you get to that point, you're no longer doing it alone.
Yeah.
And that journey that you've gone, you should have surrounded yourself with people that are going to support, help you build, and share the vision that you have to get you to that point.
And that's I think, number one job of a founder or an entrepreneur is creating the vision and getting people to believe in that vision. And I think that is your job, especially early on, but, continuing afterwards. You need to make people, not make them, but you need to be so passionate that people are believing in whatever you're selling, whatever you're providing, that vision that you have has to be so high. I don't know.
You are right, but I'm going to go back and say it is what you said. I know you're trying to be correct here, but you need to make people believe.
Yeah, you do.
And so if they don't believe, then they're not the right person for you.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
You need as a CEO or founder, right, or a co-founder, whatever.
Yeah.
The perception of titles are the most ridiculous thing in the world. Yes. You can be a founder and not be a CEO.
Yeah, absolutely.
People believe that the name CEO brings power.
No.
And it doesn't.
It's a job.
Because you as a CEO should be grooming the next CEO to take over. I don't know about you, but I don't really want to grind for 20 years in a row and be a CEO for 20 years.
No.
I want to grind for 10 and find the next predecessor that's coming in to take the vision that I have to the next level.
Well, I think...
And support them.
Yeah, and I think that's important because, in order to hit a mass amount of scale, it takes different types of brains at work.
1,000%.
And the way that your brain works in the early stages is not going to be the same type of brain that's going to be needed to take you to the next level.
1,000%.
But I think that takes a very self-aware type of CEO or a self-aware type of founder to be able to do that, to be able to take a step back and to be able to, Mila says, can you get out of the way? To be able to take a step back and to make those changes. And I hope this was beneficial for people because, starting a company, it's not easy. It's not easy by any means.
I think it's a 2-part episode, or maybe even a 3-part episode.
Yeah, we should.
Again, I don't prepare for shit.
No, but we know.
Except for work. I'm serious about work. Because anyone's listening, I am serious about things that I do, and prepare for those things. As I tell people, prepare for your meetings. With this, I don't like to prepare for this podcast. Yeah. You're the director of it, and you really home in on it, but I like when I don't prepare, you get the raw truth, and I believe this is why we built this podcast, is for listeners. But I do think that what you said in this podcast deserves a little bit more of a breakdown for our listeners to hear more in detail.
I would think that'd be great. Yeah.
Because we just hit the stone of like, okay, you get to this point, what next, right? We
Mm-hmm.
didn't talk about how do you prepare your company now
Yeah.
for that growth, right? And is your company ready
Yeah.
for that
This
growth?
was like the first 2 chapters.
Yes, I mean you can call it 2. I mean you can even put maybe 3 or 4 episodes,
Yeah.
just because these are questions that people ask us
Yeah.
all the time. Like, you know, I started this business and I have X, Y, and Z, and I've plateaued at this growth stage. How do I get to the next stage? Or I haven't hit that growth stage. Or
Yeah, what are we
even
missing?
better, right? If you said it earlier, it was like where at one point you were TRAX, you were everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how do you let go of things now?
Yep.
How do you trust somebody else with your sales strategy?
Yeah.
How do you get somebody else to change your sales strategy
That's
and
tough.
adjust,
Yeah.
right? So all of these different things come into motion.
No, I agree. And so
Let's get Milo's take on this. Hey, Milo, come here. What's your take on that? What's your take on
He
that?
says he just wants to be a buyer.
He says, why are we still talking?
To that point. Well, this is why, we pulled together our brains to create the Entrepreneur's Toolkit. So, we just released this course, this workshop. It's online that you guys can buy now. We are doing an early bird launch right now for $25. That's all it is. Literally, it's cheaper than, your breakfast and a coffee.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but it puts,
in Atlanta it is.
Yeah, but it puts all of these key concepts into a format where you can go at your own pace. It's a 4-week course from creating the vision, the business plan, selling, the types of selling, how to scale, and then what do you do after the scale. And we also go knee deep into the mindset that it takes to be an entrepreneur, as well as how that evolves over time. So guys, if you want more of this type of content, you can go to mindandsocial.com. You'll see the Entrepreneur's Toolkit on the top bar. Click it, dive deep, and we are here to support you as well, especially with coaching. As you go through this process, if anybody needs extra support, we love to kind of dig in to do those one-on-one coaching sessions to help that journey.
Send us an email.
Yeah.
Send us an email. We'll reach out and we'll definitely guide. And I think that why we built Mind and Social was always to give back and help and share knowledge. And we don't know every single component to it, but sharing stories, sharing experiences, sharing things not to do, things to do, what to avoid, what to look for, red flags, green flags.
Yeah.
Every time I've had in the past, full disclosure, I've had sales coaching, business coaching. Shit, I've even had communication coaching, which I fired that person.
We need to find a new one.
Probably prematurely fired that person.
We'll find a new one.
But why I say that is because you can't do it alone.
You can't.
You really cannot do this alone. This journey of being an entrepreneur cannot be a lonely journey.
Yeah.
If you allow this to be a lonely journey, then you're moving on. You're moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to surround yourself with a community, a network, supporters, family, friends, like-minded people.
Yeah.
People that don't even see your same perspective, because it's good to get somebody else's
You
perspective,
need it.
right? You got to surround yourself. But before we leave, I just want to tell you something funny. So I recently was talking to someone who was an entrepreneur. Well, that's what they told me at the bar. So her and I are going down this pathway of just talking. And she's very passionate, she was saying. So I'm not interrupting. I'm just like
let her
listening
go.
to her thing. And again, hence the Layover podcast is called the Layover podcast, because from business, we're always traveling. We always have, well, unless you live in Atlanta, you usually have a layover somewhere. And usually when you have a layover, you meet somebody random and then tell you all their fucking problems, and then they leave and you never see them again. It's like a free therapy session.
Free therapy
Right?
session.
Oh, to whoever's not paying the bar time. And so I'm hearing this person talking, speaking to me, telling me I was so passionate because, I had this experience when I was 18 years old. And it wasn't a negative experience, but it was like a positive experience. But she loved the feeling of it, and she kept going with it.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, man. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I still in contact with her. Very cool. Then I hear the smart restroom story of how you started, and I was like, man, I wonder if Tracy was like, man, I'm so passionate about toilets. Like the way they flush, and the usage and the demand and the back and forth.
I know. I'm the restroom
But
lady
you
now.
know what's crazy? Somebody once was like, yeah, she's like the restroom lady. And I was like, have you ever said that to her, though? Because if you have not said that to her, my advice to you is do not say that to her. Component to it. But I want it's important to have passion in what
Yeah,
you're
for
doing
sure.
and understand the business cases, but it's important to lead not just with that passion.
Yeah.
Lead with more business solving, right? Because you always hear,
problem
you know,
solving.
I did this product because I had a bad experience. Well, I don't know, going to a corn concert or I don't know, right? Whatever the scenario may be. Yeah, that might be the reasoning why you did it. But you know what? To be honest with you, nobody gives a shit. Like nobody cares.
Yep.
What are you solving?
Solve that problem. Yep.
Buyers are selfish,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
I'm a huge sneakerhead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a shit that in China it's costing $10 to make these badass custom Air Force Ones. Because I'm going to pay $400 for these sneakers because I want these sneakers. So that's just my normal rant.
I know. And to recap, because it's perfect to kind of recap what we went through. For those who are wanting to start the business, as we mentioned, it's important to get that first to 100 customers. So you want to start that with an MVP product or a beta test. You want to connect with your potential customers. And to your point, you're going to be passionate about it, even at a bar, and share that emotional connection with them.
Yeah.
Focus on the solving of a problem, not on about you. It's not about you. It's about your customer. Getting that sales, being able to pivot, dance during a presentation, during the relationship, continue to build a relationship, learn from that relationship and that customer, take the feedback, evolve, and then continue to use that to get your next 100 customers. And then we are going to regroup on this and dig in next on really that in and out of scaling. After you've got a foundational business, it's structured, you've got a team, what does it look like to go to those next steps as a founder, an entrepreneur, as well as the team behind you? So stay tuned for that one.
Perfect. Couldn't say it any better than that. The one thing I will contribute to that exit of this is that we probably will be at another beach.
It's beer and barbecue time.
It's beer and barbecue time.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon, and go find the Entrepreneur's Toolkit on mindandsocial.com.
I can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that